Welcome back to Elk County, Kansas. This is our part two, kind of the southern half of it, and we are in Oak Valley, starting the day here, kind of the southeastern part of the county. This is the Oak Valley School, built in 1882. But yeah, so here, this is where we're getting started. In the first part, we were in the northern half of the county, and it was really desolate and not very many, people and hardly any towns. We're going to see some more towns and maybe some people today, and but we're still also going to head into some, north of the main road here. This is 160 that we're going to be basically following today, but we're also going to head north and find some maybe ghost towns. Oak Valley was kind of started in the early 1870s. The post office 1875. The railroad came through in here in 1879, and they started, the railroad and a mill. There's a creek and a river, kind of the confluence of those two come here, so it was a good spot. The school, a couple years later, 1882, and it grew a couple hundred people, but they found this kind of to be a difficult agricultural area here in Oak Valley, and so it never really took off more than that, and eventually post office closed in 1954, and it's now basically a scattering of houses, little community. The school, there's a cemetery, and in the town center there's a little well pump there, which is cool to see that they still have that there. We were heading north through some real significant back roads. We've come upon the Upola Cemetery. It's kind of a ways back there. We'll take a little walk back there. I couldn't find a lot of information on Upola, except had a post office 1870s to the early 1900s. Although when I was driving here, just kind of wandering around the back roads, I did come over to the railroad tracks about a mile from here, and there was an old building there, and I don't know, it could have been a school, could have been something to do with the railroad. Maybe it was just an old building. Not sure if it came from the late 1800s, looked maybe a little newer, but it didn't look like real new. Obviously somebody turned it into a house, so that's pretty cool. But it's about a mile from here, and a lot of times the towns obviously were on the railroad, and the cemeteries were about a mile away or so. So that makes sense. The cemetery does not have a ton of burials. It would make sense because the population is pretty sparse here, and the town pretty much wrapped up its life over 120 years ago. But yeah, they're all almost all of them are around these trees in the shade. See how old they are. And that one's 1895, 1897. So it looks like a baby, maybe 1897, 1903, 1930. 1914 maybe. Yeah, so that's all in the time frame of when the town was going on. There's probably some newer ones here from people that live in the area, but pretty interesting. A lot of open space here. I'm not sure they're ever going to fill it. We're here by the Busby School, and this part of the building obviously has been redone, but this school was built in 1877 right here, and I think part of it is still, part of its original form. But what was Busby? What was the town of Busby? It's kind of an interesting deal. This was on a trail. We're on Limestone Road, and I don't know if the trail was called that, but there was a trail between Howard, which is in Elk County, and Fredonia, which is, to the east here. This was right on the way, and it was in a real nice place, and people would stop here with their wagons and stop to rest. And so a town kind of built up here with, a general store, hotel, and obviously a school. And being as rural as it is, this school served a lot of area. In fact, something like 140 students went here at one time in the 1880s. But the thing was, they didn't all go at the same time because they were so far spread out, and they had to, do harvest in the fall with their crops. So they weren't able to go to school all the time. And so there might have been 140 students, but who knows how many actually showed up on a given day. And so that was but it was an important place, obviously, because it was the school for a long way away. They ended up having another school eventually, but then as the population got smaller, it came back to this one, and it was used until the mid 1900s. And so this was a community. The railroad ended up not coming through here, and so when the railroad passed through the south, they would have to horse and wagon the supplies up to here. So that's the part of the demise. And so the post office closed in the early 1900s, and it just kind of went along for a while. There was a general store that lasted here for quite a while, I think till 1959, and eventually it got torn down, and no sign of it anymore. There is a cemetery. It's not huge, but it does have interesting headstones, and definitely a lot of older ones, some newer ones, and there is a community still here. There are a few houses kind of on the main road there. The school is on the north side, the cemetery is on the south side, and the road kind of runs a mile or so between. So definitely a couple things to see here in Busby. Interesting history, and kind of was necessary in the late 1800s for a lot of people in Elk County. Our next small town here is Longton. Longton was founded in 1870. Originally, they wanted to name it Elk Rapids, but when they sent that request to the post office, it was rejected because nearby was both Elk Falls and Elk City, and the post office didn't think there should be another town with the word elk in it. So they decided to name it Longton after a village in England. And so the town started growing, and oil was discovered in 1902. And as you look at the population, that helped the population increase all the way until the 1930s, and then it started to decline a little bit there in the mid-20th century, and it has been pretty steady since 1960, with usually being in the 300s, but now is down to 288. Welcome to Elk Falls, and we've made it out to the Elk Falls Truss Bridge. It was built in 1893, and this little spot here where I've come down to sit and enjoy looking at the falls is very significant to the boom and the bust of this town. So this town has two nicknames. One is the world's largest living ghost town, and two, the outhouse capital of the world. So they got a good sense of humor here about their town, and they have, you know, different times of the year, I think, where they have outhouse tours. They got a couple in town here now, but I think there's probably more. I've been here a couple times, and obviously Elk Falls was named because of the falls right here that we're looking at now. It's not very impressive looking right now, because it's, you know, it doesn't rain much at this time of the year in Kansas, and it's very dry. So once the waters get rolling a little bit more, you know, the falls a little more impressive to check out. And but you know, the road used to go right through here. This was the bridge that brought people basically right through the town. And in the 1880s, the population was over 500 people, and you know, quite a growing town. It was in the, you know, in the 1870s, it was in the running for the county seat. There's a long history of kind of like what happened around here in the county seat wars. And actually, there was one county they divided into two different counties. And once that happened, Howard became the capital, or the county seat of Elk County, and Elk Falls, you know, just was another good-sized town at that time. And when you go down, you know, to the downtown area, you can see why people might call it a living ghost town. They got the idea to try to get tourists to come check out some of the old buildings, and you know, some people liked the name here, and some people didn't like being called a living ghost town, and so there, you know, became events or tours of town at different times to show them around town to try to get visitors to come to Elk Falls. So the annual Outhouse Tour is held on the Friday and Saturday before Thanksgiving. In addition to creative outhouses that are here, you can enjoy music, crafts, and food at basically a little, you know, festival type weekend. It's a very quiet town. You know, you can certainly come check out the downtown living ghost town part. The bridge is really, this is a really spectacular bridge. I mean, they just don't have many bridges like this around anymore. And obviously, when the falls are rolling, it'd be a nice place to come and hang out for a while. I've previously done a video about Moline, a small town USA video, where I went all around the town, told about the history. So I'm not going to do that again, but we are here, and one of the most unique places, I guess, oddities in Kansas is here in Moline. Is Kansas' oldest swinging bridge, and we'll walk across it here as we're talking about Moline a little bit. And we're almost done with our trip today. We got maybe one more town, a couple other things to see. So yeah, this is always if you're in Moline or Elk County, you got to stop by the old swinging bridge. We've come to the end of the road here in Elk County, Kansas, and it is Grenola, Kansas, as we kind of the farthest westernmost town in Elk County on 160 here. And Grenola has a funny name, kind of funny name, and that's because it's a combination of two different towns. There was a greenfield and a canola, and the railroad decided to build between the two towns back in the day. They were, miles apart. So they decided to join forces, and come here and start the town of Grenola there in the 1870s. And it became a major shipping point for cattle. And so it's kind of a booming town there in the 1880s. And then oil was discovered not too far from here. And so in the early 1900s, so a couple of different times where population was helped, and I think 500-600 people at the most, and certainly kind of like a lot of these other towns, dwindles over the decades, and what you're left with are a lot of historic things in the downtown area, and Grenola has a lot of them. Walking around, it's got a great mural on one side of this building. Everything's just kind of right here. It's very well kept, just like some of these other towns. I've been very impressed with a lot of these towns today. So that wraps it up for Elk County, Kansas. Hot, sweaty couple days. It was very, very interesting. I've done more and more of these county-wide videos where I'm going to all the different dots on the map, and every county has a unique story to tell. And Elk County couldn't have been more different from part one to part two. Part one was just lots of back roads, not much population, very little in terms of modern amenities at all. And part two, while there wasn't a lot of modern towns and cities, there were towns and population and really cool historic buildings, and it looks like people really care about the communities. And each town is a little quirky in a way, like there's something to come and see and visit. And Grenola here, just like most of the other towns, one of the things I noticed, one of the few buildings, or some of the towns have more buildings than others, but even if the towns are pretty small, they have like a senior citizen center. Say that 5 times fast. And I think that's the thing about why the population is going down, because there's not a lot of young people that live in places like this, and it's an older population. And unfortunately, the way that trend goes is that the towns are going to get smaller and they're not going to be filled back up. There's less schools than there used to be, and there's less jobs than there used to be, and so less reasons to live in these towns. But I'm glad there's still a lot to visit, and if you're in Elk County, definitely Part 2 has a lot of places that you can see that are right along 160, a really cool drive. Or you can go back to Part 1 and plot out a course and make sure you have terrific tires, because that's the kind of place in the Flint Hills that you can get flat tires. But yeah, a lot of places. There were other places that in Elk County that no longer exist, and I'll put their dates of their post offices here. But I really enjoyed it. Elk County's got a lot to offer, very unique and fun couple of days of exploring. Thanks for making it all the way to the end of that video. And now that you're here, let me tell you a little bit about some of the extras that we have on the channel. One of the things you can do is you can become a member. There's 3 levels. There's the supporter level, there's the producer level, and the executive producer level. And all 3 levels have different perks, and as you are more supportive financially, there's more perks. We have extra videos every week and a lot of fun stuff going on in the member section. If you haven't done so, make sure you check out travelwithawiseguy.com. We've got lots of extra stuff on there, and one of the things is merchandise. You can get you Travel with a Wise Guy t-shirt. We have Death Go Round t-shirts. We have some coffee mugs, different things that are a lot of fun, and people seem to have enjoyed. Good quality there. Also on the website, you can do things like check out the Google map. I have a pin dropped in every place I've done videos about, then a link to the video, so you can look at the map, and maybe there's somewhere where you live or somewhere you want to go. You can check out that map, and it seemed to be a very popular thing. You can sign up for my newsletter. I do that about every 3 weeks. It's totally free. And there's also all kinds of other links and tidbits in there, old videos, podcasts, just everything I could think of I throw on the website. So make sure you check out travelwithawiseguy.com. Thank you for everyone who has been supportive of this channel, and thank you so much for making it to the end of this video. And now for the reason you're probably here, the outtakes. Welcome back to Elk County, and we are in Oak Valley. This is the Elk Oak. At the old Busby school, there's a death go around. Doesn't look like it's in working operation anymore. Too bad. Oh, it does move. Check that out. Oh, wow. Kind of amazing. I don't want to stand on it because I'll probably break it. I didn't give a rating in Busby. I think that was difficult. I mean, it's hard to give a bad rating to the one that was falling apart, but let's check out this one. I think this is school colors, maybe? Pretty good. I didn't spin it very hard. That's a 9.0. They're like teeter-totters from the future. You got that old slide that will certainly give you second-degree burns. All right, all green. A little bit of a wobble. 1 point deduction for the wobble. Good paint job. Pretty nice. We're gonna give it an 8. Sorry, we're open. Pretty clean. Cleaner than my bathroom at home, probably. Elk County, you did good on the death go rounds. Final one, I'm going to ride this one. We have, for the first time ever in Travel with Wiseguy, an aerial death go round. I don't know what you would call it. Check that out. So you hang on it and fly around. Doesn't spin very fast. That would be wild. Could really fling somebody off.